everybody, so today I want to chat with you about what I actually eat. If you've been following me on Instagram, I keep changing my byline to say oh, want to be vegan, plant-based, flexitarian, and I keep changing my mind, and I guess I feel like that's okay to keep changing your mind about what you want to eat and how you want to label yourself, but maybe I just don't really fit into any labels. Maybe that's my problem. So the whole process of actually thinking about what I eat in terms of health started with reading John Robbins' book Healthy at 100, and it's a fantastic book. I really recommend that you read it. I'll make sure it's linked down below so you can check it out. It really sort of helped me think that I could use food to help kind of keep me healthy and living a really abundant life until a really old age. That book basically tells you that if you eat whole, unprocessed foods, are a good part of a community, have a really healthy exercise outdoors program, then, or at least that's my takeaway of it, then that's a really, really great way to live. So I always try with my food to focus on whole, unprocessed things. I do a lot of baking at home, a lot of cooking, a lot of making from scratch, and I'm a very experimental chef, which sometimes obviously goes right, sometimes it goes wrong. My poor husband has to put up with me and my baking crazy ways. I am not a vegan. I still eat chicken, I eat a lot of fish and seafood. I don't find any of those to upset me. They keep me feeling healthy, they keep me feeling balanced. We don't, however, eat too much meat. I think quite a lot of the problem that stems in a lot of the studies about veganism and the unhealthy natures of meat comes from just eating way too much. So we eat maybe a couple of times a week, if that, of meat, and then we eat definitely a couple of times a week we eat fish. There is so much more that I could say about veganism and talk about it, but I'm just going to leave it at that for today. I do, however, not drink cow's milk. I find that to be so weird. I have for ages and ages. We've been drinking different kinds of milk in this house. Predominantly we drink soy milk and homemade almond milk, and so does my son. I just find it so strange that as I was breastfeeding him, I was creating perfect milk for him. And all of the studies would say that breast milk is perfectly designed for him. So not only is it weird that we would drink cow's milk that's perfectly designed for a baby cow, but even in the cow world, the mother makes a perfect milk for her cow. So it's really, my brain on that one, I can't get around it. However, I do think in history, taking the extra milk from a cow is okay, and then turning it into something fermented like yogurt or cheese. So I do eat that very occasionally. And that might seem random, and perhaps I just haven't read enough books on that one yet. The main reason that I don't have dairy is actually for my skin. Every time I have dairy, I have a huge breakout, so I know about it, and so I try and avoid it because I like to have a clean, shining face. 1,000 years ago, I did a video on how I avoid dairy and processed oil to keep my skin clear, and I totally still stick by that philosophy. So what percentage of protein, carbohydrate, fat, and all of that jazz do I eat? Protein, I kind of put on the back burner because I do feel like you can get your protein if you eat enough plants and grains. If I'm eating something like chicken or fish, I limit the amount of protein that I'm going to have to 20 grams of protein, because I read somewhere once that your body can process 20 grams of protein that's that dense at a time. And I do find when I eat more, it takes a lot longer for my body to figure out what to do with it. And I can feel really sluggish if I eat too much. In terms of fat, I kind of break it down into two groups. So there's like really processed fats and oils, and then there's like whole fats like avocados and peanut butter and nuts. I don't really limit this group, but this group I really limit. So I do have oils, but it's like a teeny tiny bit, and I try and do most of my cooking without oil. I do eat gluten. I just try to make sure that the gluten I do eat is healthy whole gluten, like sourdough bread for example, or in my own home baking, and it comes from a good source like organic spelt flour. But I'm a little bit flexible on the gluten. If I'm out and there's a delicious cake that's not gluten-free, I'm gonna have that cake. In terms of carbs, I'm a type 1 diabetic, and so I need to make sure I don't have too many carbs in one sitting, and that the carbs I do have are nice kind of whole, slow release, low GI carbs. So things like whole grains, for example, in their whole form, it takes so much longer to digest and they're so much better for you and for me. Also get a massive headache if I have something that's like really too high sugar and too high carbs. Carbs are so complicated, and again I could probably do a whole video about carbohydrate just given what I've learnt being a diabetic. We do avoid sugar in this house at all costs. We replace sugar with various things like coconut sugar or agave syrup, although we use less of that now, date syrup and honey, things like that. Honey is very high on the spectrum, we don't have that very often, but it's a nicer, if you need something that's really, really sweet, it's a really good alternative. Coconut sugar I find to be the best for doing an alternative in baking. It seems to work really, really well because it's obviously got the same texture. I do not have caffeine. That's kind of related to food because chocolate's got caffeine in it and various other things have got caffeine in it. But yeah, I don't have caffeine. It gives me major heart problems, and like my brain just goes like blah, blah, blah. So I don't have caffeine. I just try and avoid it. If we go out, I have a decaf soy cappuccino, and I just love a decaf soy cappuccino. Then I just want to talk a little bit about how I eat in the day. So I do eat 3 meals a day. I do snack when I feel like I need it. But the big new major thing for me is I actually stop eating when I'm full. Ever since I stopped breastfeeding, my appetite basically just shrunk. It got so small, and I just really didn't need as much food to fill me up. And I was finding I get to the middle of a meal that I'd normally eat and be totally full already and just want to stop eating. And so I just listen to my body and I stop when I'm too full, which actually I don't tend to get too hungry even now, which is kind of weird. So I just don't eat if I'm not hungry enough, and I just wait another hour or so until maybe I'm a little bit more hungry. But if you speak to any of my family, we grew up in a family where you ate everything that was on your plate, and like it was really rude if you didn't finish it. So I still feel really weird when I get to like almost towards the end of the meal but I just can't manage that last bit. It's really strange to me. So if you want to know what I kind of eat in a typical day, I think a classic typical day for me would be to start the day with some porridge. I love porridge, that I make myself with homemade almond milk or soy milk, and then I usually throw a bunch of stuff on the top. Lunch and dinner kind of alternate and they vary. We try and have a good whole grain, loads of veggies, and then some sort of addition on top of that like chickpeas, smoked tofu or some fish. My husband really likes sauce, so we do a lot of saucy things like bolognese and chili and curry. And of course, because we live in England, it's good to have that because it's really, really warming. We do keep fruit in the house and we eat fruit a lot. I should probably eat more fruit. I kind of buy fruit and then my son eats it all, and I should probably eat more of it. When I buy a pack of raspberries, he's not really into fresh raspberries because I think they're just a bit too tart for him. But I get to eat a whole packet of raspberries and I love raspberries. I just love any kind of tart berries, and I can just eat like a whole pack of those. I think the key thing for me is that I really try and listen to my body, and so if after I eat something new my body doesn't agree with it, I try and work out what it is about it and then try and avoid those things in the future so that I always feel lovely after a meal and I don't feel too bloated or too heavy, because I really just don't like feeling like that. So there you have it. That is my thoughts about food and what I actually eat. And I hope that hasn't surprised too many of you. I think if you follow me on Instagram, you have a good idea of what it is that I eat. But I was just really challenged to be more honest and open about exactly what I eat, because I don't want people to think that I'm definitely a vegan or that I definitely don't eat one or the other things, because actually I kind of eat everything but in moderation. And if you were to ask my husband, he would say that you can eat everything in moderation and it's totally fine. I'm not sure I totally agree with that, but I do think moderation is one key part of eating a healthy diet. So I know a lot of you will have questions, so please leave those down below and I will get back to you. And thank you so much for joining me today. I will catch up with you soon in a new video. Bye!